Enzo Maresca is hard at work at securing his dream defensive option in Bologna's Riccardo Calafiori. Today, my friends, we have some big, interesting transfer news to get through, so I hope you guys enjoy. If you're enjoying this summer's Euro 24, hit that like button, share your thoughts and opinions on the tournament, and of course on today's stories too. So let's not waste any more time. And to start with things, we discuss some interesting news involving, yet again, more goalkeeper targets. Now, as we already know, Maresca is more than happy to work alongside Robert Sanchez and George Petrovic, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the club are happy with the keepers we have at our disposal, because as we know, our sporting directors, they control the players that get sold and get brought in. And I see it this way: until we start selling players, the amount of sales we bring in determines the amount of money we could potentially invest in the summer's window. And I think that with more sales and more guaranteed money coming our way, this means that we can have more ambition when it comes to spending in the window. And with more ambition, we could see a new goalkeeper coming in if we have the other priority position secured first. Now, it's no surprise why Enzo Maresca will say that he is happy to work with keepers he has, because there's a big possibility that we won't invest in signing a goalkeeper depending on summer activity. So I say this so you guys don't forget this context, because even though I'm saying this, we are constantly still getting reports to goalkeeper targets, especially goalkeepers coming from La Liga. And I think we'll still keep getting targets until we see Maresca training and working with the keepers during pre-season. Now let's discuss the keeper targets from La Liga. One target we looked at earlier, Jorgensen of Villarreal. He has committed to signing a new contract extension with Villarreal, which is good news for him because he's on an absolute pittance contract. He'll start earning some decent money, and he's a very promising goalkeeper we should continue to pay attention to. Outside of that, we have more goalkeepers we're linked to today. One involves Alex Romero of Real Sociedad. Now, he's currently protected by a 75 million release clause, and the article mentions nothing about there being contacts or negotiations or anything. So this purely tells me this is a scouting target that's been revealed now. Another goalkeeper has been announced, and that is Jan Oblak of Atletico Madrid. Now, the news surrounding Oblak is Atleti are open to selling him this summer because they need to reinvest back into their team. They want to start challenging for La Liga again, but they don't have the finances at the moment to be able to sign key players in key positions. So they're willing to sacrifice their goalkeeper to bring in some big money to reinvest. But in my opinion, do I see this move happening at all? Absolutely not. And I don't even think it's because of Oblak's age, because he's 31 years old. It's the finances. I think he's earning over 10 million a year. I think he's earning around 400,000 a week. This is ridiculous money. He's also protected by a 120 million release clause. Even if Atletico Madrid were open to selling him, at a reduced fee below his release clause value, you can't tell me that we're willing to invest awesome money on a goalkeeper as if that's gonna like exponentially boost and improve our team. I don't see that happening, and I just think that if anything, Atleti are trying to get more interest now in the market to try and find some suitors for Oblak. I don't see it happening unless they are willing to take a drastic loss on their goalkeeper. And if I'm being really nerdy, you could argue that Oblak hasn't necessarily been at top form for the past 1-2 years. He is kind of underperforming his post-shots expected saves, which doesn't necessarily tell the full story. You're not necessarily signing Oblak at his absolute prime. So yeah, I think these new targets are going absolutely nowhere. I don't think this will be the first time that we'll see the end of goalkeeper reports throughout the summer. Now, a strong possibility could be we are assessing goalkeepers for next season, not even this season, because we have looked at a lot of young goalkeepers recently. Of course, Jorgensen, Mamardashvili from Valencia. Reports in Portugal state that we are still having conversations with FC Porto for Diogo Costa. These stories won't come from nowhere. They won't get made up. So there is something definitely cooking behind the scenes at goalkeeper, but I'm not expecting anything to come at this moment until we get more guaranteed money from sales coming in. So that's the goalkeeper updates out the way. Now let's move on to the big story today, my friends, involving Bologna's Italian international in Riccardo Calafiori, or aka the Timothy Chalamet of football, as my girl would say. I don't even know why she knows about Calafiori, but I think it speaks for itself, right? But regardless, my friends, He's one of the most watched players at the Euros currently because he had an absolutely outstanding season with Bologna under Thiago Motta. Now, Thiago Motta has just been confirmed as the new manager of Juventus, but today we'll be discussing reports coming out from Italian journalist Riccardo Calafiori, and he reports that us, Spurs, Juventus, Madrid, Bayern, and a few more clubs are now expressing interest in Calafiori. Now, I can't understand why Spurs would show interest unless it means that Real Madrid are really serious about potentially signing Christian Romero, but am I discussing that? I don't really know, but at the moment, let's focus on Juventus because as we've known for a while, they are unofficially in the race because Riccardo Calafiori would like to work again with Thiago Motta, and he has agreed on personal terms already on a 5-year deal. Now, the main reason as to why nothing has gone through this is because Juventus had hoped they could sign him for around 22 million plus offering players in exchange, but Bologna are like, that won't be happening because as we know, they signed him for around 4 million euros, like 2.6 million pounds from FC Basel, but included in that deal was a 40% sell-on clause, which means that Bologna, they have to sell him for pretty big money to bring in like a sizable profit for his sale, and at the time, they were happy to sell for around 30 million pounds. Due to Juventus stalling, there are now potential openings available in this move right now, but let's discuss the latest updates coming out from Bologna because Bologna CEO Claudio Finucci said, "We already said that our intention is to confirm most of the current squads for our new manager in Vincenzo Italiano, who they just signed from Fiorentina. We already told Calafiori's agent that we have no intention of losing him this summer." Now we know that Calafiori has held conversations with the new Bologna manager, but personally, I see Bologna selling him this window. And their original valuations of 30 million euros, I think they were selling themselves way too short. I think Juventus messed up by not securing things ASAP because now that he's become an Italian international and he's starting games for them at the Euros, of course starting for them for Albania, becoming like the 3rd youngest Italian player in history to play for the national team in defence, it seems that Bologna's ambitions now have risen and they'd be happy to sell at around 50 million euros. This far eclipses anything that Juventus have offered for the player, and around this price range, only a few clubs like us and a few others do have the funds and resources to make a move like this happen. Now, today we learned that Enzo Maresca had sent scouts to watch his game against Albania, and I think this news is quite promising because as we know, Maresca is a massive fan of Calafiori and he is the defender he wants the club to sign this window. But even outside of that, the club were already monitoring Calafiori before Enzo Maresca was confirmed as our manager. So it's nice to know that both the manager and the club kind of agree about this player's quality, and I think that's a good reason because I think he has the potential to be one of the best defenders of his generation, and I'm not saying this lightly. Do we have any possibility of making this move happen? Fingers crossed. Let's see what happens because if Juventus can't afford the deal, then there are openings now available. And there was an interview that Calafiori had a few years ago in Italy where he spoke about his 5-year career plan, and this took place when he was at FC Basel, and he said that within 5 years, if he was not back in Serie A, he'd love to go to the Premier League and he'd like to either play for West Ham or play for us. And it makes a lot of sense because both us and West Ham have an Italian legacy at each of our clubs. So fingers crossed, Calafiori could be open to potentially coming to the Premier League if we make our interest more concrete, if we can persuade the player to come and play for him, and if Enzo Maresca can have some conversations with him to express his ideas tactically for the player. Because football players, most times, they care about how they're going to be used by the management. It's not a surprise why Calafiori will feel safe working with Motta at Juventus because he helped bring him back to Serie A and he helped announce him in that league. But that doesn't mean that he couldn't announce himself in other leagues. And I do think that Enzo Maresca's ideas tactically do really complement Calafiori's game. And I think from this part of the video, let's actually discuss this game in even more detail. I'm not surprised that we're getting more reports surrounding him because they have kind of been hovering behind the scenes for a while. You know, Calafiori is this new modern style of defender, similar to your Kobles, your Gavadios, your Kirios, Hatos from Ajax, where they're more than just defenders. Now for me, I kind of see Calafiori as essentially just a midfield player who decided, you know what, if I make it in defense, I'm going to be absolutely clear in my career, because this guy is just so comfortable on the ball, and I really stress that. And I think that's what separates him from the pack. The guy's progressive carries, his progressive nature in general, carrying out from the back, that confidence, that timing to know when to underlap, when to overlap, when to step up. You know, a lot of defenders get caught in two minds. I think last season, Pochettino was kind of training Levi Cole to get a bit more confident and comfortable playing this way when he was playing him as that left back from last season. And by the time I started to personally see Levi Cole showing more comfort playing this role, like 1 or 2 games afterwards, he's playing back in defense. So I thought to myself, we didn't even really necessarily benefit from that style of play. But throughout last season, we saw how with Cucurella's emergence, playing this more inverted role, that this could be the long-term direction we are hoping to focus on now at this football club. And if that is the case, I think going for one of the best players around right now, who completely fits this model, who fits the strategy, would make the most sense. And I'm already having dreams, maybe I'm just getting way too gassed or carried away, of a back four of Calafiori, Cole, Fofana, Reece James. This could be one of the classic all-time defensive partnerships of this generation, and I really feel that, because Calafiori, he is essentially just the whole left side. I mean, you can call him a left back, you can call him a centre back, you can call him a wing back. He can do all of that. But when you look at his heat maps and how he plays, literally that whole left zone is his, and he is comfortable in any position there. He is so talented, and I do think that these days you need to have more technically accomplished players in defense now, because see it this way, if you're a team like us, you're up against an opposition which are looking to just kind of shut down spaces for you, constrict spaces, and they tend to lower their blocks, and they tend to pack more in their areas defensively. So it means that some of the only players that are able to actually face the goal actually tend to be either your fullbacks or your defenders. And I do think there's a reason why in the modern day game, there's much emphasis now on defenders needing to have that ability now to play and make out from the back, to kickstart attacks, you know, to play through lines. That's the most important thing. But I think we're also starting to see an emergence now of a defender that's being asked to step out from defense to push into midfield. And that's because teams now need to have an additional player offensively, just so you're not getting like overloaded by the opposition team's defense, right? So if you need to push someone further forward, it now means that there's a need now to have more of an inverted style player that can essentially step up into midfield to protect you from getting exposed against counterattacks. That's the key tactical meta that we're starting to see in Europe over the past like 2-3 years. Imagine if we had like a Reece James and a Calafiori. People are already predicting that maybe Reece James would be like the exclusive fullback that inverts the midfield. And see it this way, if Reece James decides I want to overlap and attack down the right hand side, Calafiori will just step into midfield. And if Calafiori wants to like overlap and push down the left hand side, then Reece James can just invert in midfield. I personally think this is the dream vision that Maresca has for our team for next season. And I think if we can sign Calafiori, we are just improving ourselves from not only a footballing aspect, but a tactical aspect as well too, because many possibilities get opened up playing this way. I really hope something happens here. I don't know if it's impossible for us, but I think we have to be very aggressive. We have to be very assertive. We need to have these conversations. We have to make it clear and known, you are our future. And to be honest, under this new ownership of these directors, they've had a great track record of signing their #1 candidates. And look at some of the players we've been buying over the past 2 years. So I wouldn't rule anything past these guys right now. But honestly, I feel like having Calafiori in this team could really just push us up even more to potentially becoming one of the super clubs of this generation. I really mean that, yeah? So my friends, that's the video today. They're my thoughts and opinions. I hope you guys share yours in the comments below. And on that note, I am Nini FC. This is BlueLionsTV. I'll see you guys all tomorrow.